I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
I'm Christen.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
So today we're continuing our series of Star Trek number ones, where we take a look back at the premiere episodes of each Star Trek show, just to kind of get an idea of how they will compare to the upcoming Star Trek Discovery premiere. We do have a guest with us. Christen, why don't you tell us how you got into Star Trek?
So, Star Trek is actually the very first show that I ever remember watching.
Really?
I used to watch it with my family. They knew it was going to be clean. But
And were they Trekkies before you? Like, did they watch the original series or anything?
No, they never did. I mean, they never wound up being Trekkies. I'm the only one that wound up.
But they were down for dabbling. They were
Yes.
checking out
We
Next
watched
Gen.
it every week.
Okay.
Every week we watched Next Gen.
So it was like a family thing for you, and did you immediately like it, or were you like, did you kind of grow to like it over time?
No, I really liked it originally, and there was it was always kind of, something that I watched growing up all the way through, Deep Space Nine. I've seen all of Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
But, the thing that most stuck with me, was actually the time episodes.
Oh, yeah.
And so it got me into quantum mechanics, like theoretical quantum mechanics.
Wow.
Can't
That's
do the
interesting.
math. Can't do the math. But that was when I really got re-hooked back into it when I was about 15.
Yeah.
Star Trek does not dodge around time travel.
No, it does not.
It only got me into things like model building and fan fiction, so I'm glad that somebody took something important out of it.
I never did ride the fan fiction bandwagon.
Did you have like this is kind of on the spot, but do you have any like favorite episodes or anything that just kind of jumped out, or maybe even just like favorite characters from the show?
It's really funny because I'm always torn between Worf and Spock. Okay. And that's such a crazy opposite thing to really love.
They're both trying to live between two worlds with...
Yeah. I don't know, and I think they both, maybe because of that cultural identity crisis, they're like the best Vulcan and Klingon they can possibly be.
Right.
They want to be so good at being that. They have to like prove themselves.
Yeah, they have a chip on their shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also they're kind of they pop as among they're sort of the other in the group, The original Star Trek was, I guess, pretty much exclusively humans with one Vulcan in there.
Yeah.
And exclusively humans, I guess one Betazoid.
One android.
So I think Data and Worf sort of most shared they're the odd man out. Troy didn't really kind of experience that, I think. She tended to... It felt like Betazoids blended with your sort of...
And she was also half human.
Well,
yeah,
more
true.
so than Spock was half human.
But I think with her, too, I think the thing that grounded her and made her less of an other was the fact that she was so close with Picard.
Right.
There's that relationship.
Whereas Worf got yelled at for a few
in
seasons.
Weird way.
And we talked about that when we watched the premiere episode Encounter at Farpoint, because before Riker is on the ship, she's really his right-hand man, who is...
and I feel like that was a missed opportunity to really take that someplace.
Yeah, but she remains a pretty steady anchor throughout. You know what I mean? She's always his conscience. She's always there to both guide, and she pushes him a lot. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, somebody's got to be the moral compass when Picard gets crazy.
Yeah,
he does occasionally.
When he goes off the rails, he really goes off the rails.
Normally when Borg are evolved.
Yeah.
But so Star Trek Voyager, this was the 4th Star Trek TV show, and the cool thing about the premiere episode was that it actually launched UPN's network. Back in January of '95 when they had UPN first go on the air.
Yeah, I forgot that.
I forgot about that.
And just to go through a quick summary of the episode, it opens kind of how the first episode of Deep Space Nine opens, with the scrolling text,
Right.
like that other sci-fi franchise.
Which one is that?
I think
Galactica.
Stargate.
No.
Space Above and Beyond.
No.
Oh.
Lex.
Farscape.
But no, it explains that the Maquis, who had been set up the previous years in the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, this rebel group who have left the Federation to go fight the Cardassians, are this known entity.
At that point, the Cardassians of the Federation have a truce, right?
Right, they have
so the Federation would
established a
also like
border.
the Maquis to chill their shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's making them look bad.
General Chillage.
Yeah.
And we have a battle. We see a Maquis ship. We see a guy with a weird face tattoo in command. There's
Thank you.
we have a Vulcan on board. We have the kind of Klingon-looking lady. They're in combat with Gol Evek, who had actually shown up in the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine a few times.
That's right. He was a named bad guy.
Yeah.
They all look the same to me.
All the Cardis look the same.
All the Cardassians, man.
And they do, kind of. But they're in the real nasty part of space, the Badlands, full of plasma storms, and suddenly they get hit by this big wave. And then we cut to the best opening credits that I think any Star Trek show has done. I love the Voyager opening credits.
Oh, the best. Gently coasting through a nebula while majestic music swells.
Yeah.
Then
It's
it's
like
Jerry
skirting
Goldsmith.
the what do you call it, the rings of a ringed planet and all that, and they're kind of just gliding right over the top of it.
Right, and Rogue One ripped that off, where you see a ship going above a ring and there's a reflection on the rings.
Yeah, so I was paying a little bit more attention to it this time, to the opening as we watched it for this, and I don't think I had noticed the reflection before, which is a very nice touch.
It is.
And the early CGI, in 1995, that used a lot of CGI, and I had never seen
they also
anything
do the
like
thing
that.
where they go into the big solar flare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it holds up,
they go
too.
under it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it
holds
still
up,
looks
too.
good.
It still looks fine.
And they went and got Jerry Goldsmith, who did the famous Next Generation opening theme,
AKA the also Star Trek
from the motion picture, and
I had forgotten that. I don't think I noticed it was him.
that's actually the only opening credits where they never change or tweak anything, or like change the music or change the visuals out of any Star Trek show.
Oh, you mean like over the seasons they did?
Yeah, it stayed the same. Well, I mean, like they dropped Cass and add 7 of 9. But
Right.
other than that,
But it's not like there was
That's
a
a
pic.
trait I was
There wasn't a
looking for.
picture of him going doing that thing.
but they
Oh,
didn't.
Galaxy Quest.
yes.
Other than that, they kept those opening credits the same.
Yeah.
The graphics and the music for all 7 seasons.
That's true.
That's a pretty strong show of faith in it, I would imagine.
So after that, we cut to Earth, the Federation penal settlement in New Zealand, which I'm guessing this is like prison in Norway, where
Yeah, where they're like, let's look at pretty things and maybe
Just
maybe
it's
build
just
stuff?
openness. No walls or anything like that.
Maybe it's like an IKEA prison camp.
Yeah,
in
well-
Norway.
What is it? Australia was famously a prison colony or whatever. Is it like making New Zealand the future prison colony?
think
is that like
so.
stereotyping? Is that?
Ah,
I mean, they're like
I
they're
don't know.
Australia's little buddy.
no, they're not. I know a New Zealander at work, and he's definitely not fond
Not
of
a fan
Australians.
of?
No, not a fan.
But we see Janeway for the first time. She's there to recruit Tom Paris, who is this hotshot pilot who's been imprisoned. She explains that she had served with his father when he was a captain of a ship she was the science officer on, and she basically...
Awkward moment.
Yeah.
It's really awkward.
Yeah, he's like, I have daddy issues.
So bad. And she doesn't care. So hard.
Yeah, she's off to find that Maquis ship that disappeared because her chief of security was on board. This guy...
Undercover.
Yeah, yeah, and
Undercover.
this guy used to work with the Maquis, and he knew that area of space. So they're bringing him on board as an observer. In return, they will reduce his prison sentence.
And he's kind of an asshole.
He's
He's
a
kind of an
total
asshole. But there's more to him that
Right.
we'll get to. We then cut to Deep Space Nine, everyone's favorite space station. And we see Tom Paris, fresh out of prison. He meets Harry Kim, the young officer fresh out of the academy.
Fresh-faced.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, he...
So
And he's getting conned by Quark.
Quark.
Yeah.
Of course,
Which
Quark.
I did. This is just kind of a funny Star Trek thing where Quark basically sets him up.
he guilt-trips him.
He guilt trips him
absolutely.
on kind of for racially profiling
Yeah.
him, and I was like, The funny thing
And then
is, though,
totally fulfills that stereotype.
Yeah, and in Star Trek, it does kind of work that way. Humans have like all this diversity of different types, but aliens are usually kind of one thing. They're all whatever their main religion is, or all Klingons are mostly the same.
Yeah, that's a valid thing to say. There's kind of a one-dimensionality.
Monocultural.
Monocultural. That sounds right. I'm going to make a quick D&D reference. When you make up a character in Dungeons and Dragons, each race has something that's like, dwarves are clannish and fierce, and elves are lofty and intellectual and all that, and spiritual.
Get your bonuses.
And for humans, they do always make out they're very diverse. They have
more skills that they can get per level.
Right. They have more. They can pick any class they want without any modifiers or penalties or whatever. So I see this as like a broad kind of pop cultural thing too, where humans are diverse and other things. I think because it's fun. It's fun to have focused and it does help with the metaphor stuff too.
Yeah.
But it's fun to have focused things. Like if the Klingons were so diverse that there's the warrior caste and then there's the political caste and all that, then they wouldn't be Klingons.
No, it's true. And then they use humans' diversity as a way to kind of highlight individual issues. Because you can't re-delve into a culture every single time you want to make a point.
Exactly.
So basically they're drawing from
it's
that
a shorthand.
humanity. Exactly. Yeah. It makes it a lot easier.
Another cool thing is that we do see Morn, everyone's favorite Deep Space Nine character, in this episode.
Who is that?
The barfly.
He looks
He's
like
sitting
a
at the bar.
Michelin man.
He's in every episode.
Right.
See,
the alien,
I love that you got
yes.
that. You're like, oh yeah, that guy, the bloated one.
And it's a cool design, so he should be in it.
Yeah.
I like that he's silent though. That's my favorite thing is he just.
Or sometimes he's
just
about
wants to be
about to talk and then someone cuts him off.
Oh, do they really do that?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He's like Wilson, like the guy from Home Improvement, where you never see his whole face.
Yeah. I thought you meant Wilson the volleyball from.
Oh God, no.
All right, pray continue, sir.
We see Janeway on the ship having the last conversation she's going to have with her boo for a while.
Oh God.
Yeah, was that her...
Boring.
Was that her husband or
They're not technically married.
Yeah.
It sounded like a serious boyfriend.
They're essentially husband and wifed up, but they're not actually married.
Do you think
they have a dog together? This is a sign of the deepest commitment.
But was it a little too? Yeah. Do you think a little too lovey-dovey? Like, oh, we're such a good couple. Oh, he's looking out for her.
To be honest, I think it was kind of there to establish we're leaving all of our homes and families. But I think also that there was an element of them trying to project a softness on her.
Right.
Where they were because she has initially in this series that kind of hard-ass quality.
Right. I think they kind of, that was something that I gather they somewhat struggle with throughout the whole thing is what degree of toughness
I'm going to disagree with you there. Because I was thinking about this last night when I rewatched the episode. And I think they did a great job with her story arc because she does that, that unbending throughout the series. And I think that's important because it's hard to be a woman in command.
Yeah, they put a lot of thought and effort into
because you have to be that hard ass if you want to be respected. And then as the crew becomes a family, she becomes more of that. She's a steady mom figure. She knows when to drop the hammer.
But the thing with the scene in this episode that I will say about her talking to Mark on Skype is that at first she's not even that interested, she's trying to read something and drink her coffee
and she's like my dog,
and this is actually the last time she's gonna talk to this guy for a long time. And
you're talking about his little passive aggressive line where he's like, I'll stop bothering you.
No, just
and then she's
you never bother me.
You're that sucks. But before that, I just love the I love that she's gonna regret. She's gonna regret this,
right? If she dies out there, it's gonna be her dying.
Yeah.
But they finally leave the station. They go into the Badlands, and the same wave that we saw hit the Maquis ship hits Voyager.
Nice piloting, Tom.
He wasn't even
piloting.
Oh, that's right.
They had the Betazoid.
That one.
How about for Skeevily hitting on that Betazoid chick?
Well, he said he always flies toward women at warp speed when they're in visual range.
He's a scuzz bucket is what he is. He's a scuzz bucket.
But the ship is transported to the other end of the galaxy, and the whole engineering staff died. The first officer died. The doctor died. Yeah, the whole medical staff died. The helmsman died.
I have to say, I felt like they weirdly missed a beat by like not showing one moment of mourning for any of those. Her first officer, like
this is like the first time
she
they've
just met him.
Yeah.
She didn't give a shit.
It was like the first day at work.
Oh, well, did she? That's right. She didn't.
This was a freshly built, freshly staffed.
I forgot. Yeah, and they talked about all the new technology
when
and stuff.
Picard came on Enterprise.
Yeah. Like if he had lost
like
Riker that first day, he would have been like, "Well, I feel bad about it, but not that bad."
All right, y'all step up to the plate.
We see Janeway stop a warp core breach, which I like, because with her being like the ex-science officer, yeah, like she's always like more hands-on and involved, where a captain like Picard is more like he's just like delegating to other people.
Cerebral.
He can only do the archaeology stuff.
Yeah, but you need a flute plate. He's your man.
Yeah, like with Janeway, you have a captain. I hope not.
Who's to say?
Just because he's British.
But with Janeway, you have a captain who has like one specialty that she
right.
They can like use that skill set.
Perfect for this mission is essentially what it boils down to. She's got that that science mind that Picard has, that explorer, that exploration impulse that he's got, but she's also got a much more grounded kind of hands-on experience.
More granular.
She's kind of Kirkish like that, where Kirk was always in the action. She's a whiskey drinker,
and Picard like slowly swirls and sniffs wine. You know what I'm saying?
We also see Tom and Harry go to sick bay, and they get the emergency medical hologram running, and we meet the Voyager doctor for the first time.
Love the doctor.
And first, you love to hate him, and then you just
he's in his asshole season 1 stage.
All right, I do remember, like, I think when I was first watching it, that I was like, this guy's just is like obnoxiousness. Is that going to be all there is to him? And I actually felt
monster story arc.
Somewhat quickly, they started moving away from that.
Suddenly on the ship, everyone starts disappearing, and they appear out in the country in front of an old farmhouse, being offered lemonade and sugar cookies. This is where it gets kind of boring.
It is boring, but my first thought, it was so boring that my first thought was, who eats sugar cookies and drinks lemonade? Like, that sounds terrible. The sugar, the sour, no.
That's a good point.
That was a misfire on
that's what you do
the part of the old lady.
That's what you do when you have a welcoming bee. Which is,
oh no, I've been to a barn raising, but I've never seen a welcoming bee.
Then they all eat corn on the cob. We see Banjo Man.
Yep, who will become important later.
Yes.
A young woman who wanted to take Tom and Harry on a trip to the root cellar, or to go see the duck pond.
Is that what she calls it?
She offers them deviled eggs.
Hey baby, I got canned peaches down there.
But they detect life signs in the barn, and then all these country folk get real violent. But no, the Maquis crew had been abducted and hidden in this barn.
Right.
So this is all some type of holographic illusion.
Right. Holodeck style.
Yeah, I'm not really sure
generated.
Why the writers chose this type of setting.
It is kind of innately dry.
Well, no, and it's just weird because, like, if they chose, they've clearly scanned the ship, they've gotten this information, obviously, from the computer databanks or from people's memories. Right. But in no way is that relevant to these people at all, so why choose that
if one of them had specifically been raised on an old-style farm by somebody who was trying to keep the old traditions alive, like maybe, but... Yeah, exactly.
If they were kidnapping me, that'd probably be the way to go, but these are science people, so no.
Is it just so that... Do you think they just wanted some more outdoor sets and kind of... I know actors, whenever I hear them talk about it, they're always so happy when they kind of get to do outdoor scenes and, like on Star Trek actors specifically.
It just felt slapdash.
Yeah.
Either on behalf of the show or behalf of the caretaker. I'm not sure which one, but somebody...
I mean, I guess to be fair, the caretaker, as we'll learn, is not doing well. So maybe this was just
that was my theory. Is that
I can't generate a city or like Picard's noir town or whatever.
Right. I'm like, this is the most
how about some wheat fields and some sugar?
Well, cookies? I think his mental faculties are already decaying, and so he just thought oh, these people like this.
Down to home.
But then we have this kind of...
I guess he does want him to chill out, and that's what you do on a chilled out farm. You just have the sugar cookies.
But then it switches to be very unchilled, where it turns like this weird alien abduction movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was a kind of a big thing in the 90s. You had like X-Files was on TV.
It was very X-Files when they're all on the little platforms and their arms are hanging down.
Star Trek Next Generation had even done 1 or 2 episodes, the Riker thing where he was getting abducted and probed.
Yeah, Schism.
Yep.
In season 6, I believe. We see Harry Kim and some other people getting needles stuck through their bellies.
Yep.
And suddenly, the entire crew appears back onto Voyager. The Maquis crew are back on their Maquis ship, except B'Elanna and Harry, B'Elanna being the Klingon woman we saw at the beginning, are missing.
Right, and she's the the engineer for the Maquis.
Yeah.
It's revealed that Tuvok is the spy on Chakotay's ship, and Chakotay is pretty pissed about that.
I felt like the scene needed more, by the way.
Well, I like that moment right before that where Chakotay is like, I don't know, Tuvok. Do you think we should trust these federations and go
And he
over
was
there?
like, nah, dude.
And he's like, yeah, man, let's do it.
B'Elanna's not just the tech, person either. She's basically Chakotay's first officer, which I think is one of the problems with her integrating, not just the fact that she's kind of a bitch and has a terrible temper, but also the fact that she's used to being in a much more central role, and she feels kind of shunted aside, I think, in a lot of ways.
And she's not dissimilar from Kalar, the half Klingon, half human woman that mothered Alexander in The Next Generation. The other time we saw a half Klingon, half human. When they both had kind of like this resentment to their Klingon side.
Yeah. I don't think they really prepare human parents for that.
But they also established that Chakotay's not only pissed at Tuvok, but he also has beef with Tom Paris.
Mm-hmm. He basically sees him as having sold him out?
Yeah.
Being a mercenary,
no integrity.
No
he
principles.
says it,
it's very noble to Chakotay.
Right.
But he says it, at least the Vulcan who betrayed me, he was doing his job, he was undercover. You're just this...
He's a sellsword.
Yeah.
Right.
Essentially.
He's Mad Mardigan.
But what I love here is that Janeway stands up for Tom. And she says, you're going to respect the people that are... I don't care if this guy is a convict. You, respect the people that are in my crew.
Why do you think she stood up for him? Did she see in him that she could mold him into something better? Or was it because of her father?
I don't think it's maybe... I mean, it might be a little bit because of the father, but I think I'm going to take a different
What do you think?
tack. Because she realizes at this point, if nothing else, she's a pragmatist. So at this point, she realizes that those are the only people from the quadrant that are together. She knows that she's going to have to make some kind of alliance, some kind of compromise. It's why she makes Chakotay her first officer. She has to concede something, but she can't concede it all. So I think that was her first step of being like, here's the line, dude.
Yeah, and she's gonna need a badass pilot. So
there you go.
Yeah, they killed that guy, the other guy.
As far as the dynamic between...
saying, they could have had her say one thing about somebody who she lost, like he seemed like a good guy or something.
They all seemed boring though.
Shucky.
Of course they were.
Here's boring white guy doctor. Here's boring white guy first officer. I didn't...
They were
their personality was that they didn't like Tom.
I know, but then if you have people die as a big deal, it's well, the characters care, why should the audience care? They didn't have time to go and show them.
It's true.
There was some really convenient.
They're fucking red shirts. Red shirts die in Star Trek. That's part of the show.
Straight up in the tradition.
It was just very convenient, which slots were cleared out. They're oh, we have these awkward, extraneous crew members.
I guess what I would say is
people died.
I guess I would say is Kirk would sometimes, after he lost somebody, he would be like, I've already lost 5 crewmen, I won't lose another. He would just. I don't know if Janeway had that moment. I would have thrown it in there.
Well, instead, she breaks out the fucking phaser rifles.
Those things look cool.
She does.
They beam back over to the Caretaker's array. This little
it looks like
spinning
a big station actually,
that's
kinda
shooting these energy pulses out, and they're back on the farm, trying to find B'Elanna and Harry. But Banjo Man tells them, unfortunately, they're not here. They he seems like he's
demented.
Yeah, he's losing it. He's letting them know that he's trying to honor a debt that can never be repaid.
Right,
he's running out of time.
He's cryptic. He sounds a little Alzheimer's-y, and also deliberately vague too.
And the pulses on this array start accelerating, and they're shooting off to the star system. They find a planet orbiting that star that the atmosphere has been messed up where it can't rain, so it's turned into this big dried up desert.
It's like Dune without the spice.
And they also they find a debris field, and there's this alien in a ship who introduces himself as Neelix. He says that that planet, that's where the Okampa live. The Caretaker takes care of them, and that was his array. That's where your missing crew people are. This has been happening. Ships have been being pulled here from other parts of the galaxy. And they make an arrangement with him to help them find their missing crew people.
He basically seems like a scavenger.
Yeah, it's like that moment in D&D when you're like, okay, there's a new person approaching the party. Is this a really good decision? Is this a really bad decision? Or is this a decision that we're just going to have to...
Right, if it were D&D, I would be like, this seems like it could be a helpful NPC. The DM probably wants us to befriend him and maybe get something out of him.
but make sure the thief keeps an eye on his
Yeah, exactly.
And we see Neelix meet Tuvok for the first time, and that dynamic is established.
That's a fun one.
Leading to the awesome episode where they get fused.
Oh, and Tuvix.
By the way, I thought it was, Neelix gets on my nerves, but...
Until Kes goes away, he's insufferable.
So I'll be looking forward to this. But I was amused when they told him about, like, they were going to transport him over, and he's like, well, how do you do that? And he's like, oh, we've got these teleportation technology, and they're like, and he like braces himself like this. He makes a big to-do about how he's about to be transported. It's just kind of funny.
He was also impressed with he was also impressed with having enough water to be able to take a bath.
It's
something that was
and he's
new
just
to
like
him.
pouring it on himself.
Yeah, that was a little creepy actually.
I love that.
Doesn't that like that's when Tuvok has to go and like talk to him?
Yeah.
And, like,
Towel.
But that first exchange between the two of them, where he says, "You Federations are a really advanced culture," and Tuvok says, "The Federation is made up of many different cultures. I am Vulcan," and he's like, "Oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Vulcan," and he calls him that throughout the rest of the show.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it stuck. It definitely stuck. And Neelix stuck to Tuvok, much to Tuvok's dismay.
But I think Tuvok gets like really, really annoyed with Neelix, and it's like taking like all of his Vulcan emotion suppression to not like snap at him.
Well, and I wonder kind of too like how that dynamic is influenced by the fact that Kes becomes Tuvok's student. You know what I mean? And Neelix is really annoying
When she's like doing her psychic
when
powers
she starts to
developing.
develop that. The second that she does anything that grows or anything, Neelix devolves into this obnoxious little wreck.
We cut to B'Elanna and Harry. They're in some weird kind of medical room.
Right.
They're getting to know each other.
They got a little bit of a love, hate, distrust kind of thing going on.
Actually,
there's no love in it.
I was like, no, she just hates and distrust.
I guess it's a distrust/trust thing. They're slowly working towards it, but they got to be kind of very wary of each other at first.
Puppy dog idealistic is really what it is.
Right.
She's full of hatred and rage.
They embody Starfleet and the Maquis, and they even like
that's a good point.
They talk to each other like that. They call each other Starfleet, Maquis.
Yeah.
Right.
And they meet the Ocampa. We see them. The Ocampa are like saying, "We'll treat you because you have like these weird spores
right
coming out of your body."
Pustule things.
Yeah.
Like it kind of looked like Harry Kim looked like he had like a nipple on his wrist, like on Enterprise when Trip got pregnant. That's what it reminded me of.
Like, I'm sorry, your nodes are showing.
And the Ocampa say, you can live here. We'll give you food. We'll take care of you. You're sick. By the way, everyone who gets this disease and is sent here from the Caretaker dies. So they're like, shit, we got to get out of here and get back to our ships.
They're in the underground of the Ocampa underground at this point, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I did think there were some just special effects wise very nice, maybe matte paintings. And some CG probably because they do some big spanning shots of the underground. It looks
There was great use of lighting.
Cool.
I feel like the Caretaker was basically like, let's make it light and airy because you're never going to see the sun again.
And they established...
If you have to live underground.
The Ocampa established that they've lived there for 500 years. There's this great warming that began that ruined their planet, and the Caretaker gave them this environment they could live in, has been providing for them. He's shooting energy at their planet to make all these systems work.
At this point, you wonder why.
Yeah, and you're wondering why.
Later.
So Neelix is on board Voyager, and he tells them, okay, there's this place on the planet we can beam down. We can find friends that will help us get to your missing crew members. Neelix takes them to a Kazon settlement.
Kazon, which will be the recurring alien kind of bad guys.
In the initial couple seasons.
Only for 2 seasons.
Right. Slightly cut-rate Klingons.
Yeah, and the idea with the Kazon...
seaweed in their hair.
The original concept was that they were all going to be teenagers, and they were going to be different gangs and rival factions. They were basically going to be... Because, this was the 90s. They're going to be the Bloods and the Crips. And they were going to be, like, super violent and hostile.
Like the time that freaking Nog played the little baby, obnoxious
like
Kazon.
they were all going to be like kids like that.
Yeah.
And they thought that like their society and like their feuds with different gangs would be so violent that most of them wouldn't live past 16.
Right.
And they found out that it would be too hard to get that many child actors. So they tried to do the same thing with adults, and what we got were very boring bad guys.
Or super one-dimensional.
Even when I was a kid watching this, I thought they were fake Klingons.
Yeah. I did like a little bit of what they later did with one of the... actually, I forget what the deal is. Wasn't there's somebody who's genetically altered or whatever, who's like some sort of traitor to the Voyager crew?
Oh, that bitch.
Yeah. Seska?
Yes.
Cardassian?
I hate her.
Yeah, that was
it.
it.
Cardassians are all fuckheads.
But I thought that she joins up with the Kazon, and I felt like they became more interesting when she was around them.
Yeah, that stuff was kind of cool.
Villain.
Yeah.
Well, that was because of her. It wasn't because of the Kazon.
Yeah, I know.
Right. It's the only spark I sort of noticed in them. I kind of wish they had done, I guess, what they had originally thought and had them be those gang member types.
It's just too hard to get that many
kid actors.
But
I also imagine...
They're like, hey, let me kill your kid violently again and again.
Right.
And kid actors suck. I mean...
Pretty much.
It would have been hard to
There's
pull
good
off.
ones, but it's, somewhat few and far between. Also, if the Enterprise has to fight with these... Voyager has to fight with these people occasionally, maybe blow up their ship or something like that, it's probably going to start to look bad after...
You're just murdering child.
If you're killing kids.
After child. Yeah, that's legit.
But their reaction to Neelix... when he says, "Oh, friends, I've come to see the ever wise Mage Jabin," and they, I love that where like they all like grab them like the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
And we see this young blonde woman who's kind of beaten up.
She's an Ocampa.
And Neelix is talking to Jabin, the leader of these Kazons, and he explains, these are the Kazon Ogla. They're one sect of the Kazon. There's many. They trade resources with each other, but they also end up, fighting a lot.
They kept that tribal concept going.
Yeah, so they still had like that tribe, like street gang type of mentality. Right. But Neelix says that the Voyager people have water, so you should help them. These people don't have replicator technology.
Mm-mm.
So when Janeway beams down a big toad of water,
2 of them.
It's kind of a big deal. But we quickly see Neelix grab a phaser and take Jabin hostage.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that happened when I was watching this, and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah,
what is he doing? Which is what everybody else is thinking.
He's trying to rescue the young blonde Ocampa, who we find out is Cass.
Right. I was actually thinking, I was like, this is just where they meet. And so that I was like I forgot that they had been together.
Where did they meet is like my main...
Yeah, and they never really explain that.
They never go into that at
all. But
all.
Apparently some of the Ocampa, the younger generation, they're kind of frustrated with Ocampa culture. It hasn't, their society hasn't...
Stagnant.
What's an Ocampa very stagnant. You doing in a desert like this?
Yeah, and some of them started to venture off to the surface. So Neelix kind of betrays the other characters. This was all just a way for him to get Kes rescued. They get back to the ship. The doctor patches her up. She doesn't look like a battered woman anymore.
That was a little disturbing because she also looks really young. I mean, she probably was really young.
Yeah, and the other disturbing thing about that is that she's not even 2 years old with how Ocampa aged.
Right.
I think Neelix is. If he's having sex with her, he's sleeping with an infant.
He's not
sex at all.
He's not.
Gross.
Oh, but come on, we're talking about Star Trek stuff.
Like a mutton chop fetish, perhaps. Because maybe that was
clearly
really
something.
We also have in season 2 where
the only man who never hit her.
When she was going into the
that's his best quality, his lack of abusiveness.
When she goes into the mating cycle.
That one was weird.
Yeah, and she's like,
is that where she's chasing after Tom or whatever?
Well, no, this is where she's only gonna have one opportunity to. This is where she's eating mashed potatoes with dirt in them.
Oh, okay.
And she's like, this is the only time I can mate in my life, and it wasn't supposed to happen yet. It's supposed to not happen until I'm 4, but it's happening now when I'm 2. And Neelix, I want to mate with you and have a baby. And the
decision is thrust upon him.
Yeah, and the thing,
wigs.
If they go through it, it's like a 3. They have to have sex for 3 days. And no woman should have sex with Neelix for 3 days straight.
No woman should have sex with him for more than like 3 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
You're like hoping that he's a 1 minute man. You know what I'm saying? You're like, get the fuck off me, bro.
But,
you don't know.
And get off.
Don't judge Neelix. He could be a very, very awesome lover. You don't know.
Who knows?
but he is convinced by Kes, these people helped you save me, we need to help them save their people. And so Neelix and Kes know a way that the transporter should be able to beam into the Ocampa City through some of the weaker points in the structure. So they get underground, and we find out that the Ocampa Society has become very stagnant. That Kes wanted to leave. And these people are telepathic, but they've lost their abilities. You know what this reminds me of is, I've never thought about this before, but Talos 4.
Okay.
Which also had telepathic aliens, but how they lived in like an automated society, and they'd kind of like lost their way.
I think it's crazy that they're like reliance on hydroponics, and then later that is also Kes's obsession.
Well, she's an authority.
Wicked into hydroponics.
She's an expert on it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, B'Elanna and Harry, they're trying to escape. They find this staircase.
Everybody is very split up for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty chaotic.
To again go with a little bit of a D&D analogy.
I was just gonna go there, man.
We've introduced it into the show, so we have to say this would be really bad for a D&D party.
Yes.
And because if B'Elanna and Harry had just stayed put, then like Janeway could have come down and just gotten them.
Yeah, but you knew they weren't gonna.
It did feel like there was a little bit of artificial. They threw a lot of tension into climbing stairs, and
there was lots of shaking. Cameras back.
Although I did think their sets were kind of cool and stuff. Like I did feel like sort of the sense of them actually being there. I did feel like stair climbing is not super dramatic, and I probably wouldn't have made it the focal point of like the last half hour.
Yeah,
no.
That's like almost like building up to the climax. You have a bunch of what's supposed to be exciting.
The writers heard that it was a rising action, and they're like, "Oh, let's literalize that."
Yeah, but they're getting worse from the whatever disease is infecting them.
Right.
And they do have like a little cool conversation where we learn a little bit of B'Elanna's backstory. We learn that she washed out from the academy.
Right.
But yeah, they pass out on the staircase. The Ocampa City is getting hit by these energy beams really fast, and then it just stops all of a sudden. And then the array starts attacking the planet. It's trying to destroy all of the energy conduits so that the Ocampa are completely
sealed
off permanently. And
suddenly Tuvok busts out, "I got a theory."
Yeah, Tuvok hypothesizes that the Caretaker is dying. He's sent these people a surplus of energy, and he's not going to be able to provide care anymore.
I did like Tuvok's kind of little mystery-solving thing where he's like, he's talking about not having enough time, and based on all the stuff he's doing, he looks like he's like a dying person who's trying to finish up his stuff. It was cool.
The first time we see Detective Tuvok.
Right.
Which becomes a thing that they do a lot more of going forward. And I love all the Detective Tuvok episodes.
He'd be fun in like one of Picard's like Sam Spade novels.
Yeah,
you know
for
what
sure.
I mean? Like one of those holo programs.
Absolutely.
Neelix and Tom are sent by the captain to go find B'Elanna and Harry. So they find them on the staircase. They get them up to the surface. Have to blast the rocks open with their phaser and climb up to the desert surface. And while that's going on, Janeway and Chakotay start making their way out. But they have some rocks fall on them, and they're immobilized. So at this point, Tom says, "I'm going to go back and get them." And we learn that he's not just like this asshole.
Right.
And they I love that conversation that he has with Harry earlier, where when Harry finds out, why everyone's trying to avoid this guy, they all think he's a bad guy.
Is it true?
Yeah, and what he did was he made a mistake, a piloting error. 3 people died, and then he falsified reports, then later confessed about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And he gives this kind of smart-ass answer to, why he did it. He's like, all I had to do was just keep my mouth closed. But the 3 ghosts of those dead crewmen came to me one night and taught me the true meaning of Christmas. But I actually...
he's very jaundiced and cynical about it, but...
I like the character of Tom Paris a lot because he's not as big of a jerk as he's...
He's flippant. He's like a psychologist's, wrapped up in a bow, stereotypical I have daddy issues kind of person.
But he also doesn't want... He tries to push people to him.
He pushes people
them away.
Right, and so Harry's like the one guy who kind of like stands up for him a little bit early on, and you kind of see that come to fruition later.
Yeah, that friendship. And here we see that Tom is actually like pretty heroic, and he's willing to go like rescue the captain and Chakotay.
See a butt.
I am gonna have a small butt here, and I'm gonna have a small butt because he saved Chakotay because he wanted to hold something over his head. He has a slight altruistic motive, but I feel like Tom.
But do you think that was his main motive, or do you think that was what he?
I don't think it was his main motive.
Yeah,
I
of course he's gonna rub that in his face.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, it was like, here's the thing: he can't say I did something noble. He has to couch it. In something kind of skeevy.
He's very flippant.
Yeah. Because he's like, I don't want to. He's not ready to actually become friends yet.
See, that's why he and B'Elanna work so well. They both have serious parental issues.
Mm-hmm.
So Kes and the sick B'Elanna and Harry beam up to the ship. Neelix decides to go with Tom, and they go back down this exciting staircase.
They should have made that a ride at like one of those theme parks or whatever. The Escape from the Caretaker.
Neelix gets the captain out, and Chakotay is, his part of the staircase is about to fall into this big chasm, and Tom has to
say a bunch of racist shit
say
about
a bunch
Native
of racist
Americans.
things about Indians.
He's like, can't you
turn into a bird?
Your spirit animal?
Yeah.
You're like, whoa.
Damn, this was the 90s. I guess the tail end of people really being kind of assholes about that.
Well, they
not that stopped.
They don't handle the Native American stuff very well. And part of that was because the Voyager writers, they actually hired a Native American expert. But this guy was a fraud. He didn't know anything about Native Americans. He was just like claiming to be one in Hollywood.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it like a known thing?
Yeah.
Oh, how does that happen? How does that happen?
Apparently that happened a lot.
Oh man.
But
yeah, he did a terrible job of pretending.
The thing with
if I'm not mistaken, he's like, oh, if I said Tom to Chakotay is like, if I save you, you're gonna owe me your life. And Chakotay, I was kind of amused. He's like, wrong tribe. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But did it kind of prove to be true? Like later on, he's like, yeah, I do actually owe him my life or whatever.
But they never established what tribe Chakotay is, so it doesn't really.
Do they
matter.
not in later episodes?
No, they never
can't,
do.
because it's a horrendous mishmash.
Because there's no tribe that's
you're gonna
like
offend
that.
someone because it's really crock.
Yeah, to be fair, like presumably there would also have evolved to fit the 24th century. What are they in Voyager's time?
The 24th century.
24th century, yeah.
Chakotay is also from the Native American planet we see in the Next Generation episode Journey's End.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was part of the border treaty with the Cardassians, is that it was going to go into the Cardassian territory, and Picard was actually instructed to remove these people from their colony.
And he wouldn't.
Right. Fairly straightforward symbolism here.
And they never say this on screen in a specific episode, but that was intended to be his home planet. So me just being the continuity freak that I am and trying to make everything have some kind of rationality behind it. So at some point in the future, like some Native Americans like get together and leave Earth and they form a new tribe. It's kind of like an amalgam.
Sure.
And that's why Chakotay has this very weird
mashup of beliefs.
Yeah.
Well, and they're also stereotypical. Like he literally goes on like a spirit animal quest, and you're just like, oh god.
But I'm gonna go with your explanation, Father. This will help things work better.
I win the no prize on that one.
Yes.
But Tom does rescue Chakotay. They all get back to the ship, and the doctor has patched everyone up. This reminds me of like in a video game where you just have to like go get health kits, and then all of a sudden like your injuries are gone. Tom and B'Elanna, they're no longer sick. They're fine. They're able to help the ship,
remove their
crew.
Scabs.
And
Harry and B'Elanna.
Tom takes the con for the first time and officially, and some Kazon ships show up and begin a battle because they're
dickheads.
Yeah, they're dickheads. They want the Ocampa City. They want the Caretaker array. Mm-hmm. Janeway beams over to the array and meets Caretaker, still in the form of Banjo Man.
Right.
And she had to get back to him because, as far as they know, this is the only way to get home. Mm-hmm. And she tells him, just send us home, please. And he says he can't.
It takes too long.
He doesn't have time. He doesn't have enough strength. And he's dying, and he's so worried about the Ocampa living without him. He explained that he is a part of a race of explorers. They came to this planet. They fucked up the atmosphere and ruined the planet permanently on accident.
Yeah, apparently, they explore by destroying atmospheres.
Apparently.
Yeah. So he and another stayed behind. The other has long since left.
That's so depressing.
But identifies as a female caretaker.
Banjo Man.
Which they established that...
Is she Banjo Man?
Well, we meet her later in the show.
Right.
Pretty early on. But
yeah, it was clearly a setup for future stuff.
Well, the original idea was if the audience didn't like the concept of them being stranded on the other side of the galaxy, this was
at
the
any
back
given
door.
time they could meet her and be transported back.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
a legit
interesting.
Out.
I mean, it is, but at the same time, it's weird because it's the concept
so
was
central.
so focused. Yeah, it's weird that they were like, maybe they'll just go exploring and after
That
they
could
come
have been
back.
like a studio thing. Like, you need a back door for this.
Yeah.
But
you know what? I wonder how it would be different if they did. Like, would Janeway, would her boyfriend come out and hang out in space with her dog?
You'd
Would
also
she have like
have
a
to,
family?
you'd have to explain like the Maquis crew, like these are all criminals, or like do they
But
like
no, they're good guys now.
do they get pardoned? Yeah, because they're good guys
Right.
now, or like how that
Lots
would
of
work.
I just have to quick say as a side, I like the Maquis uniforms. They look kind of stylishly rebel.
And I think they should have kept them.
Clothes.
They should have kept them.
Yeah, like that would have been a visual reminder.
They had pimpin' jackets and stuff.
But they couldn't. You know they couldn't. There was no way to make that crew one crew if there was a constant visual reminder
true.
of the separation
True.
of the two crews.
Basically, like pirate people walking around.
Well, and plus the Maquis crew was way outnumbered, so that's going to cause resentments. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They're just looking for
And they do
trouble.
run with that occasionally for storylines in at least the first season.
Well, and everything about B'Elanna.
Right.
Pissed off Klingon and Maquis.
But we finally see the caretaker in his true form, where he turns into like this like weird Jello mold,
Jelly rock.
and
Right before he dies.
Right before he
Yes.
dies,
And becomes a rock.
but as he dies, he says, "I'm not going to be able to destroy the array, and it has to be destroyed. It can't fall into the Kazon hands." And we have this big space battle with their ships. The Kazon big badass mothership looking thing shows up. And Chakotay has to kamikaze his ship into it. Beams
cool.
out at the last minute. You know, it was a
Like you
cool little action moment that you really only see in like a pilot episode or a season finale.
Yeah, that's when
Right,
we
when
waste
they're
the
gonna
CGI
put some budget.
money, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yep.
Janeway's back on the ship, and she says, we have to destroy this array. And B'Elanna freaks out because she knows it's like, this is our only way home. You can't do it. But Janeway dams them all to the Delta Quadrant, 75 years away from home, and blows up the array.
Right.
Morals
She basically
here.
doesn't want it to fall into the hands of the Kazon.
Yeah.
I love how the moment, like when the ship gets shaken and all of her hair falls down, and then like the very next scene, it's all like immaculately coiffed again.
I like to imagine she just kind of like tenses up and
I
it just
know,
kind of
like-
like shh.
The bun of steel.
But yeah, she does have to. They have to make a decision between. It's a big thing. Is to she does contemplate it for like a minute
with
or two.
Tuvok.
Right.
Well, and it's basically like, how quick are we going to abandon our Federation principles, too? You know what I'm saying? Because,
Right.
like, if they get sucked back, then they've got to account for those actions.
Right. So
And
yeah,
they don't know
it's
they're
a kind of slightly. What are they? They say it's prime directive related, sort
Yeah.
of. They've already kind of affected the cultures out here.
Yeah, they're already involved.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the Maquis informed Janeway that she's made an enemy.
The Kazon.
Or, I'm sorry, the Kazon informed Janeway that she's made an
The
enemy.
Maquis are,
They were already mad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Kazon leave, and a bunch of people join the crew. The Maquis people join. Chakotay is the first officer. Tom is being commissioned as a lieutenant, and he's going to be the new
Which I think
helmsman.
is really unfair, because Harry goes on being an ensign for quite a long time. I'm just saying.
It's true.
And Neelix and Kess are brought on board, and they go on a mission to find their way home, but along the way, and it's basically the character explaining to the audience what the TV show is going to be like. we're going to look for a way
Janeway,
home.
when she's doing her speech to the crew, is essentially also a speech to the audience. Here's our premise.
Yeah, but we're also still going to be like exploring and doing all the Starfleet Federation.
That's her talent saying, you're going to have to do your jobs, people.
It was a big exposition moment where they were like, let's pretend we're not doing a big exposition.
But I thought she handled it well. And what they say that at their top warp speed it'd be like 70 years,
75 years,
75 years, and they're hoping to check for everything they can find from the other Caretaker to wormhole stuff to any kind of weird tech that they can use to go faster.
I mean, they really should have gotten on like a baby breeding program, but they chose to just gloss over that, which is probably good. But I'm just saying practicality here.
So just to go around and get our thoughts on the episode, Dave, what did you think overall? Did you like the episode? Did you dislike it? Did it do a good job of setting up the show?
I found it. What I remember from when I first saw it, and still to some degree think it's a little too dry for me. It's a little, and some of the guys are a little more white bread than I'd like. Like, I like Tom, but I sort of wish that his bad boy thing was not so much kind of what Starfleet kind of, I think, would think of as a bad boy, very kind of obvious sort of womanizing. Mm-hmm. And
yeah.
I wish he had actually a little bit more edge to his character, and I also wish that the friction between the Maquis and the Federation was stronger. I just feel like it would have been more dramatic possibilities if they were doing that. But I liked it, I would say, over Encounter at Farpoint. I kind of...
Is that the benchmark?
Yeah, that's right. But they're kind of in the same ballpark for me of weak openings that I hope Discovery has a stronger opening because I want it to succeed, and I feel like if not for the momentum of Trek that I don't know if that Trek had going when Voyager began, I don't know if this first episode would have sold it to a ton of people.
Yeah. I think...
So, Christen, what do you think?
I think for me, I'm going to kind of, bounce off of what you say. I feel like it was a little stilted, maybe. I think the excessive use of shaky staircases had something... I mean, I really do think it had something to do with it. It was like a contrivance that just kind of went on too long.
Yeah.
So I feel like honestly the strongest thing that comes out of it is Janeway. She's the one that we get the clearest sense of who she is, what her purpose is, and the fact that she will actually lead this crew home.
Right. I think she and probably Tom have the most dynamic sort of scenes overall.
Yeah. Most emotionally developed.
I love the premise of Voyager. I like the Starfleet crew trapped away from all of their support entities. I kind of wish at times that they, from what I've seen of it, that there was had a little bit more survivalist edge, which it does sometimes for sure. But but I like the premise a lot. I'm glad that they did not actually get them back home before the end.
Yeah, no, we
because that would have completely wasted what was an innovative premise.
Yeah. Although I think that was a better executed premise when Battlestar Galactica did it a few years later. But
maybe so, but that's it's very different. I mean, intent on those kind of shows.
But what Christen said about Janeway, that ties into my big takeaway is that I think a lot of the characters are super well formed right out of the gate. And they do kind of evolve the Doctor. He goes through the most noticeable arc. Yeah. They kind of tweak Neelix. He
gets less annoying.
He gets less annoying. In this first episode, he's kind of kind of untrustworthy.
Yeah.
Right. And clearly they kind of wanted him to be the fly in the ointment. Like, whenever he showed up, everybody would be like, oh, Neelix.
They wanted him to be like the Quark of the show. They had this really popular alien on Deep Space Nine.
Their suits are even similar. They have terrible taste in
very,
fabric.
Very colorful suits. But for the most part, they had the characters pretty well formed, and one thing that I think is really clear in Voyager over all 7 years is that the dynamics are there, the relationships between different characters. If there's like a Doctor and Tom Paris scene, you kind of have an idea how that would play out. Whereas, on the original series, what's like a noticeable moment between Chekhov and Uhura? It wasn't there. Outside of the main three and Scotty sometimes.
There's a cohesion to Voyager that the other series, and it goes back to what you were saying, is because of that premise, because of that isolated thing. So they're forced to kind of squish together. Because in the other ones, there's kind of the crew, the main bridge crew, and they're all close and they have interactions. But Voyager's a lot more kind of all-encompassing, I think.
Yeah, the original series did content itself, I think, essentially to focus on the big three.
Yeah.
And as a result, I mean, you did get 3 amazing, iconic
TNG spread out
characters.
just a little more.
Yeah, and then here they seem to... Maybe they were refining it a little bit to like... So that the characters were pretty much right out of the gates pretty established with their arcs and everything.
And I love how they handled Janeway, which was apparently a big deal that there was going to be a woman captain. I don't remember this, but I was a lot younger when this happened. It seemed normal to me.
I felt like as a kid who kind of grew up in like the sort of macho 80s or whatever, I picked up on some residual sexism there, and I had some resentment, like, not resentment, but Janeway, I feel like I made like the stupid jokes like, as a woman pilot, and no wonder they got stranded, on the other end of the galaxy. Like, I like looking back, I was like, man, I was a little asshole. Like, part of the reason I didn't give it a shot, I think, I had a love-hate relationship with Next Generation anyway, but I do remember it being a thing. Like people, and like to this day, when I talk about people who kind of grew up with the original series and stuff, it's almost like they're like, they give like sometimes a token nod to the diversity that it always encouraged, but like when a female captain comes along, suddenly they're like, well, that's a bridge too far.
That's just too much, guys.
And it's weird to think, like, come on, we're Star Trek fans. What's wrong with us?
It was the same people that got mad at Ghostbusters.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's always going to be that kind of like,
it
is only for us.
It seems especially weird when I've like noticed it sometimes like with people who read like, say, X-Men, which was like super about diversity, and Star Trek, which is like, that's been like front and center from the beginning. But I can't, like...
First interracial kiss, they had a same-sex couple.
And, like, a wildly diverse, cast where you had, an Asian guy, you had
especially for the time.
Chinese guy, a Russian guy who was, those were our enemies in the Cold War.
Yeah, and there was a lot of Japanese... There was a lot of Japanese resentment in the 60s after World War II.
Yeah. Right.
But
so yeah, I remember it being a thing, and I'm sad to say that I was like kind of part of that, and like I feel embarrassed about it.
We appreciate that. That's all we're asking.
And yeah, like as I've been watching it, I'm like, man, Janeway's a badass.
She so is.
Yeah, and they were so... And the writers and Kate Mulgrew, they've all talked about how like they were so careful. They had to be careful like how to handle this.
That's why she's such a hard ass.
Well, when you're the kind of the first person to do that, all the weight is on you.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, she represents all women, and so they have to like, it's
just be tough and
right, but they're like
emotional and not too emotional and
right. They don't want her to be a bitch, and you don't want her to be too businesslike or not feminine enough.
Yeah, they don't want to like sex her up, but they don't want her to be ugly.
It did seem like
sex her down.
Right, it did seem like
that's a line we walk though, like all the time, man.
And I think they had a pretty good approach to it though. They definitely did not.
Yeah, and
even though they would at times Star Trek, I guess like with Enterprise maybe especially would sort of and somewhat with 7 of 9 cater to like sexing it up a little bit. They didn't do that with Janeway. I felt like they treated her like an adult, like
and a lot of it
serious
came from Jerry Taylor, the writer producer, who's one of the 3 show creators. It was Rick Berman, Michael Piller, and Jerry Taylor. And I think just like having a woman involved with the construction of the series, and then Michael Piller was kind of the head writer running the show for a while, and he left pretty early on and handed everything off to her. And I think just like having a woman involved probably informed the writing.
No doubt.
Because like I said, that arc, man, she's got a great, coming from that, I have to be okay enough for everybody to be like, okay, we all have to be okay.
Right, it's a kind of unique pressure that no other Star Trek captain has had to deal with.
And here's something else that I'd never really noticed until recently watching Voyager, is that even though like they make Tom into kind of the little shit, and he's always like flirting with women or like saying something smart ass,
right?
He never at one time, even in this first episode when they play that up the most, he's never disrespectful to Janeway. He never treats her any differently than how he would treat a man in that position.
Right.
Harry is a lot more awkward about her being a woman than Tom is. Like Tom just kind of takes it in stride.
Right. I suppose Harry being the young crew member, they might have kind of meant, like, intended, like, oh, Harry will be a little bit of the stand-in for the kind of guys in the audience who are kind of weirded out, you know,
yeah, he was like,
who need to be handheld through this a little bit.
Yeah, I think they needed to explain, like, how do you say yes, sir, to a lady captain? I think they felt like they had to address that to the audience in 1995.
Right. It is interesting that presumably the standard would have been to call her sir, and I kind of, I suppose, in a way, wish they had just, gone with that and never said anything about it.
I would have gone with sir, be like,
yes, sir. I liked her answer that she prefers to be called captain. Because if I was the captain of anything,
sounds a little better like her. She's like, I gotta respect that shit.
Say captain all the time.
If I thought I could get away with it, I would just refuse to acknowledge anyone that didn't address me as captain.
Oh, captain, my captain.
Let's quick talk about the ship design, like the special, special effects stuff. I think it's a cool looking ship. I think when you first see it and they kind of do that distance shot, it doesn't do it, I think, justice, because I really like the design of the Voyager.
I like when they do like an undershot of it.
And that's the thing.
You can see like
that design.
Was it the first one to not sort of have some sort of pretty much saucer, more of like a sort of a a shovel or whatever.
They wanted it to look. They wanted it to look faster and sleeker.
Right. Yeah.
But the thing about that design is that it looks better from some angles and not others.
Yes.
Right.
You want a starship to look good from all angles, so you have more freedom to photograph it.
Right.
Yeah. That
I think you're right. There are a few weak spots, but overall, I really like it, and I like that it looks different. I guess it was a somewhat smaller ship overall compared to, say, the Enterprise.
Yeah, it's a lot smaller.
Which is also cool.
There's no families on it. You don't bring your family onto Voyager.
Right.
Well, at least it's not as, family-centric, but there are...
We get into that later because of their unique situation. But
right.
Yeah, the purpose of the Intrepid-class starship was to be, a long-range... science vessel.
It's got organic technology in it, man.
Yeah, they make a big deal out of the bioneural circuitry.
Yeah.
They did that. They touched on it sometimes in the show, but that always actually kind of bothered me.
It's irritating. You introduce this cool new concept, and then we never really played around with it.
Well, I think the deal is that is something that real scientists look to, those that kind of possibility. But I think the actual explaining of why it can be more efficient than engineered. Pathways of and things like that gets pretty complicated, and maybe they just felt like when we want to say it's really good at something, we're going to mention that it has organic technology, and just use it as shorthand.
Right. I accept that.
Yeah.
Did anyone else notice that bridge officer, Mr. Rollins, looked a lot like Quentin Tarantino, and it kind of distracted me?
No. Which one was he?
He was standing in for security before Tuvok was on.
I didn't notice
Never noticed that.
Also, the one thing I got to bring up is when Janeway is worried about getting Harry back, and she says to Tuvok, "Did you know that he played the clarinet?"
I know.
And his mother called and said that he left it behind, and wanted to know if she could send it.
Mm-hmm. No clarinet.
I
just thought that was almost kind of stereotypical Asian.
Yeah. I was thinking that it made him sound like he was a kid in third grade.
I went with
and I guess he was, yeah.
More than anything else, little lonely guy plays the clarinet.
Yeah. I mean, that does pretty much fit him.
Yeah.
I want to. I'm looking at my notes that I made while I was watching this. Some of which were just completely random things. When at some point when B'Elanna is, I think she's fighting some dudes, or maybe it's when she's trying to break out. She does the double fist Kirk thing. She
oh yeah,
she does
she does the chop.
Yeah. I just appreciated a little bit of a callback to old style Star Trek fighting.
And she's probably
kind of ridiculous.
She's probably more likely to knock people out with one hit because she has the Klingon strength.
That's true.
I think the deal is if you actually hit somebody that way, you break your fingers against each other.
Fingers?
But in Star Trek, it's if it's for D&D, you add a +5 to your damage.
Yeah,
right, you're
because there's you're just they start to glow, and you've got Iron Fist power. So anyway, I appreciated it. I don't know what else to say. That's all.
But just final thoughts. Was the episode good or bad?
Solid.
I think it's decent, but I think it does get dry. It does get boring. It did need some more flair to it. But the tension they tried to get from having the Maquis crew come on board, I feel like they never really utilized that in the show. And it's kind of because in this first episode, this pilot, they really don't it's just kind of like a one line that, like, yeah, like, we're bringing these Maquis on, and we're just all going to get along, and...
Right. Wasn't there a later episode, though, where there was, like, a lot of tension?
Yeah, they touch on it some.
Yeah, there's a couple of...
But it was, like, sort of like I kind of would have liked for it to be, like, a constant background thing.
Yeah, it should have been ever present.
I suppose you could have almost, if you wanted to run with the thematic thing about the tribalism among the Kazon, they could be dealing with their own tribalism on the ship and sort of reflecting that, and that could even be a thing. It's like, we don't, do we want to fall into the infighting that the Kazon do, and,
I mean, I feel like, maybe they could have touched on it a little more deeply, but I don't think you could have made it a running theme. There was too much exploring, and they had too much other conflict going on.
Anti-Star Trek, generally Star Trek depicts as, it's just that because they brought it up, they made a point that these were kind of outlaws and rebels.
That was like the original this is kind of a marriage of two concepts. One was, okay, it's like an episode where the Enterprise goes off to the other part of the universe and they somehow get back. This would be a story of what if the ship never came back.
Right.
Yeah.
It was that married with the idea of there's these rebellious space renegades out there.
And some straight-laced Starfleet types.
Yeah. And they have to learn to work together on this ship.
This is your basic cop story, buddy cop story. You got the slob and, the uncouth slob with good instincts, and then you have the by-the-book guy, I feel like...
Tuvok and the Neelix.
Yeah. I do feel like they probably could have managed to get more out of it, but at the same time, it's kind of one of those where... Because they didn't linger on it, the show just becomes its own thing pretty quickly.
Yeah, it does.
And so it didn't linger too much in my, big problem. Like, in this episode, I do kind of feel it. I think within a few episodes of, the first season, I was like, oh, they're a pretty unified crew.
Yeah.
They've got some tensions, but, they're not at each other's throats.
Well, I think we're going to wrap things up on that. But be sure to leave a comment and let us know if there's anything that we missed, or if you agree or disagree with anything. Feel free to tell us why we're right or why we are wrong. And
they should only tell us why we're right.
Also,
I thought we'd establish this.
Big fan of being told I'm right.
I'm okay with being told I'm wrong.
Okay, yeah, all right.
That's how we learn.
Oh, Jesus.
I don't know. This one real inspiration.
Also,
thanks, Picard.
Any questions that you have, we'd love to do another Q&A episode.
Oh, that'd be super fun.
Yeah, even if it's not related to this, ask away. But until next time, live long and prosper, y'all. Thank all of you so much for checking out this installment of Tex-Trek. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to like our YouTube videos and subscribe to our channel. Audio-only version of episodes are available at our website, www.tex-trek.com. Please check out our site, especially if you just want an audio-only podcast. We have that available for you. Y'all can also keep up with us online. You can follow us on Twitter, @TXTrek. Or you can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/tex-trek. Please, by all means, let us know what you think by dropping a comment anywhere you see fit. We definitely want to hear your feedback. Let us know what you liked and what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see differently going forward. If you want to email me directly, go ahead. I can be reached at fatherlyactual@tex-trek.com. Thank all y'all again. Take care.